What am I doing forward? Income?
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. We acknowledge the traditional territory of the mutual Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. I have Chief Director Goodwin and our governance coordinator Ava. Other than that, can I have a motion on the table? Oh, sorry. Do we have any conflicts of interest to declare for this evening? Okay, so can I have a motion on the table that the board of directors adopt the agenda as presented? Motion by Director Bottinger, seconded by Director Murphy. Would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? As I see none, moving the voting, all those in favor? All those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, as I see none, the motion passes with unanimous consent. Onwards to the consent agenda. So can I have a motion on a table that the board of directors adopt the consent agenda as presented? Motion by Vice Chair Phillips, seconded by Director Corey. Would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? As I see none, moving the voting. All those in favor? All those opposed? And then the abstentions. Okay, as I see none, the motion passes with unanimous consent. Onwards to comments from the chair of the board and CGO. Hello, everybody. Hope you're all having a great night. Thank you all for coming to the board social. It was a great way to get together at Wilkes and catch up with everyone. Great way to get together for our last board meeting. The finance committee met this week. We have some recommendations for meeting in the future. We'll go over those shortly during this meeting. I've begun training for our next incoming chair, going through some monitoring reports, how to write the IC, how to run a meeting, things like that. It's all going well, and I feel like he's now sufficiently prepared to take on chair of the board. I'm very excited for that, see what he has in store. And yeah, that's all on my end. We'll go over to comments from our president and CEO, Phil or Ian. Do you guys want to take this one away?
Yeah, not a ton to say from Shane. It's been a busy couple of weeks between board meetings, and he unfortunately he's at Awar, or supposed to be at Awar this evening, which is the Outstanding Women of Glory Athletics and Recreation, which is an annual fundraiser that I think is in person for the first time since COVID at Binghamton tonight, raising money for female athletes, etc., within the Athletics and Recreation Department. Beyond that, we're just kind of winding things down. We've had several galas and events to wrap up the year. I believe the next of which is tomorrow evening on the Brantford campus. The volunteer appreciation taking place in the Level 1 Lounge. And then there's a couple of events that he's got going on next week as well. I believe I'm planning on attending the breaking of fast with the Muslim Students Association on the Wednesday, April 5th. As well as the Partners in Higher Education Dinner, which is taking place on Friday in Toronto with our partners. There's Thursday, sorry, Good Friday, nothing happening on Good Friday. Other than that, it's literally just trying to wrap stuff up as we kind of get towards the end. I think effective tomorrow, there's 19 working days left for him and his team. So not a lot of time to get stuff done. So there's a bit of a panic to kind of wrap stuff up. And this is off to Megan and her team.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for Bill? Yes.
More of a comment that I'd like to make sure gets across to the president and the CEO. I would like to appreciate sincerely the performance, the overall enthusiasm around the Brantford Foot Patrol, the committee. They've done a fantastic job this year. I've gotten multiple good feedback given to me by students about how well they've done their events, their just regular client service, and some of the on-campus events presence that they've had. So I just really wanted to let the president know that I personally think they've done a phenomenal job this year, and they deserve that recognition.
Ladies, are you coming to the event tomorrow? So I'm sure they'll be there tomorrow. So In person, live and in living color, as they say.
I did write a formal letter to the VP of Programming and Services, but I felt that it was appropriate to bring it to the board's attention as well.
Sure, that would be much appreciated.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions or comments? Yes.
I just wanted to kind of touch base on what we've been discussing earlier this week with the, or more specifically with Ian. With those EP application forms, how were they were advertised multi-campus, right?
So you're asking about the vice presidential roles?
Yeah, just the ones that aren't kind of campus specific were advertised as multi-campus.
Yeah, they should have been.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all. I just wanted to kind of,
You're talking about the vice president roles.
Yeah.
Specifically.
yes, yeah, those that aren't specifically single campus.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments for the executive director?
Quick question. Is it possible for VPs to operate out of Brantford? Like as a whole quote unquote home base?
So that aren't part of the programming and services Brantford portfolio?
Other like extra, so like other
Yes, the
VPs?
answer to my question? Other than programming
Yes.
and services Brantford, can other VPs operate based out of the Brantford campus?
Yes.
It would be highly recommended not to, given that the bulk of the work takes place on this campus. We do have a commitment to multi-campus and model. Therefore, any of the vice presidents that hold that multi-campus role, there is an expectation that they do have a presence firmly and regularly on Brantford campus, but it would be very atypical for it to happen that way.
Okay, I just want to make sure that like, yeah, should any Brantford students in the future apply for,
So we've had that before. We had a Brantford-based student was vice president of University Affairs 2015.
2025.
So Laura Bassett was a Brantford student and she ended up moving to Waterloo to serve in that role. And really using her leadership.
Cool.
What's that? Oh, yeah, Ahad last year. he was,
Yes.
Vice President of Clubs and Associations did the same thing with that one as well.
Cool, just
So it has absolutely, yeah, just like there's been Brantford board chair before.
to me, it was a good one.
Yeah, but Nick Asuma also was the person to do that and did a great job.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, thank you. Move onwards to comments from the executive director and COO. If you have anything else to add?
Surprise everybody, I'm back. Just that we are in the process in that, I don't want to make it sound like we're panicked. We're certainly not panicked, but we are very acutely aware of the end of the term coming upon us. So we do have what will hopefully be the last negotiation meeting with the SAAA, so the Student Affairs Advisory Agreement tomorrow morning at 9:30. Hoping that we can kind of get that agreement wrapped up. Our goal is to present it at the next board meeting and have it set for approval. That's a majority of the work that's been happening over the last 2 weeks. We've ended up with about 5 or 6 meetings over the last week and a half, trying to kind of secure what the future of the Student Affairs Department looks like in terms of using the money that the students pay through the comprehensive student services. Or what will be again the comprehensive student services fee, what is currently $470.
Any questions or comments for the executive director and COO?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
One quickly, with the term wrapping up, is there any on the Greek Life MOU? Is it moving on?
So the best of our knowledge, that still sits with Greek Council. So I could defer to you if you want to answer.
So we have it's called the president's agenda. So I've added all of the MOU stuff and what needs to be done for the MOU as well as all the information in. Unfortunately, I'm coming to the end of my term as being president. We're holding our elections in 13 days now. So once the new president is elected, I will send it all off to them. And then I think it wasn't super realistic to get it off the ground this term because we needed lists from every single organization. And it was kind of a fight even at the beginning to get some information from some organizations. So I foresee that it will definitely get more off the ground in the next term.
Great, thank you. Yes.
Another question in regards to the finance committee. So is this the last board meeting of this term?
Shouldn't be, there was one that is scheduled for, I want to say April 13th. I think that might be another business discussion.
Okay,
Because we do have to present the budget and the student affairs.
okay, perfect. On the budget front, is the finance committee going to get the budget ahead of time?
That's not in the mandate of the finance committee. It doesn't operate like a.
So the board as a whole gets a copy of the financial budget statements. We usually try to do it longer than the typical board resources, so like we have the mandate, I want to say 72 hours. Yeah, I can't remember, it's just, but I think it's 72 hours, so we try to get the board in that budget package is ready to have that longer than that 72 hours, so that they should have plenty of time to kind of go over those documents.
It's different than something like Board of Governors where the
Okay.
finance committee acts as the primary reviewer of the budget. And then
Okay,
in our context, the board as a whole, it has the first look at it. It's not a task of the finance.
okay, perfect. So following on that, what sort of input are we expected to bring to the budget? Because we won't be able to amend it just the day of. That's,
So it could get theoretically, so it's theoretically possible that the board doesn't approve the budget and that recommendations get put forward and then ultimately approval of that budget gets punted to your board.
oh, no, please. That's not what I'm looking at.
It's generally more of an advising consent role. It's not a budget creation discussion. It's
Okay.
here's the operational recommendation for the 23-24 budget.
Okay.
Are there any glaring pieces that seem out of step with policy? Is there anything that seems contrary to policy? For example, you'll see, they'll have an over 10K expenditure list. As part of that package, you'll be kind of looking at it with respect to the priorities that set out in the end. So it's more, that is the role. So we still are looking for feedback and questions, but you're not doing a
Line by line, okay. And I assume that we will be able to bring some, like, forward some ideas for things that, like, and I assume that the consultations with the president-elect team has been very thorough and.
Yes, it's not a budget, it's not a budget submission task. Again, you're
Okay.
seeing the final operational recommendation.
Right,
And your role as the board is the final vet of that.
right,
Again, mostly looking to make sure that it isn't sidestepping policy.
okay,
The board's task isn't in the architecture.
okay, yeah, I just want to make sure that, like, the due diligence was done ahead of time so that the president-elect was consulted so that their ideas would be able to be operationalized next year. That's the sort of thing that I was discussing.
Yep, so Megan and Shane have had quite a few meetings about what the priorities are to make sure that her priorities are fit in the budget. The items that fit within their priorities per team will either live within the president and CEO's budget or be dispersed throughout the VP's budget.
Cool, thank you.
I'm assuming that the budget approval meeting confirmation is for electors. That's going to happen sometime before the next board meeting. Am I correct in that?
Sorry, what's the question?
The budget approval meeting confirmation.
That's just to ensure that we have a meeting where everyone's confirmed if they're able to attend, so we can.
The next meeting technically on the books is 2 weeks from today, so that's April 13th, which is the first day of exams. So part of the discussion that will happen at a later point in this meeting is whether or not you want to keep that meeting as it stands or move it into the 2 study day periods where it's a little bit more open.
Okay.
Just going to recuse myself of the letter.
Okay, so any further comments for the director, for the executive director, COO? Okay, testing none, we'll move onwards to director inspection committee reports. We're gonna start with, let's start with BMD to D1. I will share my screen. Ian, can you enable the,
Just a quick note, if you guys need to vote on anything, you need to wait for the come back.
Okay.
Just. Yeah.
Okay, so This committee was struck on January 2nd, 2023, and it met on March 30th, it met on March 28th, 2023. And for this committee, we were trying to see if the policy was still relevant to the organization, if the scope of the organization was captured in the policy, how recent the policy was looked at and revised, and if the scope of the organization was captured in this policy. The final decision of the committee consists of one recommendation to the policy at hand. We want to amend the monitoring schedule to have the following policies reviewed 3 times a year instead of once per year. EL2A, treatment of consumers, EL2B, treatment of staff, EL2J, hiring practices for unpaid staff, and EL2N, hiring practices for paid staff. The main reason why we wanted to do it this way is because we wanted a consistent viewing of how we are treating our staff, treating our consumers, and how we are doing ethical hiring practices. We want this to be an ongoing process instead of just once a year to look at. We don't believe that this is too overly burdensome. We believe that this is a good policy to do so, but yeah, so that's it's our recommendation. So we'll go into discussion. Vice Chair Phillips.
Yeah, I mean, I think it looks good. I think especially considering some of the consumer relation discussions that we've had this year. I think it's important that maybe this is looked at a little more frequently. I would motion to approve the recommendation as presented.
Yeah, great points, Blake. That's something I was just gonna say. We've kind of struggled. That's like one of our struggle points here as an organization that I've seen. One of the 2 points that we've really addressed as a board. So being able to have it in kind of a 3-term installment would be very beneficial to ensure that alignment of our students being met.
Perfect. Okay, so motion by Vice Chair Phillips to adopt the DIC report as presented, and seconded by yeah, so you can't motion it because you're on the.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're right.
By Director Murphy. Would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? As I see none, we'll move into voting. All those in favor?
Can I just ask a quick question? Sorry.
Yeah.
Where is this document?
Oh, it should be in Teams.
It's in Teams?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
it's in the board term 3:30 meeting minute or meeting folder.
PMD 2D1 DIC March 3.
Which one, sorry? Oh, it's up.
PMD 2D1
Yeah.
DIC.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we're moving the voting again. All those in favor? All those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, that's none. The motion passes with unanimous consent. Moving onwards to GP2H.
Sorry.
Oh, yes.
Sorry, just, this is the first time I've looked at it, so. Some of these are already reviewed more than once, or EL2As are reviewed twice, so is it?
It would still be 3 times a year, but we were looking at the monitoring schedule, like in the board policy resources. It said once per year, but if it is twice per year, it's still a recommendation to have it 3 times a year.
Which is once per term, right?
Yes.
Just for the record, EL2J is twice as well.
Twice as well.
As is EL2N is also reviewed twice.
Okay, but still, we are looking to have it done 3 times a year, once per
Yeah.
term.
Just for because the report doesn't indicate much per year.
Okay,
EL2A, 2J, and 2N are going 2 to 3.
okay. Do you need me to resubmit the document?
No, that's okay, just as long as it's.
Okay. Okay, so the GP2H committee had discussions on the following items prior to making their final decision. If the wording of the policy was still relevant to the organization, if the scope of the organization was captured in the policy, how recent the policy was looked at and revised, and if the scope of the organization was captured in the policy, The final recommendation of the committee consists of 0 recommendations to the policy at hand. It is up to date. It is within the scope of the organization. It's all good on our end. So, any discussion? Okay, that's seeing none. Can I have a motion on the table to adopt the Direct Inspection Committee report as presented? Motion by Director Corey and seconded by Director Rashid. Would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? As I see none, moving to voting. All those in favor? All those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, as I see none, the motion passes with unanimous consent. Now move onwards to the Finance Committee final report. So the Finance Committee met a few days ago, and we determined that given the information that we had, the budget falls within the scope of the president. It seems like a very sound financial position that the school is in. However, we would like to suggest that the committee be provided with financial statements from 2019 in order to compare our position from 2019 to this year. We believe that comparing it to a non-COVID year would show how we are doing relative to other years. Other than that, notwithstanding that recommendation, we believe that everything else that the president has done, including executive limitations, budgetary approvals, all that are within scope and represent a sound financial position. So this is something that we can have provided to the Finance Committee. Yes.
If I could add, the reason why we had a very robust discussion about this. We just want to make sure that because none of us are auditors and none of us are, to my knowledge, accountants, or taking training in accounting. We can't really just make a blanket decision that the organization is following the policy if we don't understand to the truest extent the numbers that are presented in the reports. So basically what we're asking is that like we can compare our performance this year versus previous years, adjusted for inflation and other extra circumstances that typically don't happen, that haven't happened previously. So basically we just want to compare our organizational performance based on previous years and be able to just ask questions to the staff as to what the numbers mean.
I'm so sorry.
You're a student, I need to apologize, you're welcome.
So are these documents that can be given to us, or yes?
So that request is something the board could certainly put to a vote. Is not currently within the scope of the Finance Committee as it's struck. Primarily because the Finance Committee is meant to determine whether the policies are sound, whether the president is adhering to the particular policies. In addition to using the term financial reports, we have an annual audit conducted by KPMG, which has that information in it as well. So maybe some clarity in terms of the request, because it seems as though the committee don't have the skill set to do a comparison or to properly evaluate the policies. Without that, but we have audited financial statements that provide some of that context, and the board can certainly choose to make that, but it would be stepping outside of the scope of the Finance Committee's products as outlined in policy. So you would almost be more, the job might actually be more making a recommendation about the Finance Committee's role, because what you're essentially asking for is to change the role of the Finance Committee. So it's not currently structured to do.
Okay, Bill?
So I'm going to make a suggestion based on what I think I'm hearing. So one of the things that the board has done in the past is asked for quarterly statements. We've changed that to per term statements because by the semester just makes a lot more sense. And that is possible then, because Ian's right, the audited financial statements do that year by year kind of comparison so that the board and any member who needs to see those statements can see the performance of the organization over the course of time. So we can definitely apply those same principles to those per term / quarterly reports so that you guys can see where we are in terms of that particular snapshot of
Yeah.
that particular
Okay.
year.
That,
It just
that would work.
allows you to see if there's a variance that would be able explainable by say, a global pandemic.
Right,
That-
and that's exactly it. And obviously, like in that type of report where you'd be adjusting also for inflation, that would kind of give us the true numbers.
So to Ian's point, I don't think you necessarily want to change the terms of the committee. You want to change the terms to the financial stuff, policies around doing those per journal reports. Which is a recommendation that the board could definitely put a motion for to make that. But what I might recommend is you take a look at that policy at the next meeting, you make that a motion, and make that recommendation, but that's totally.
Okay. So let's look at the policy and then we'll make a motion next meeting, whether or not we want to approve those observations that we came up with. Does that sound good to everybody?
That sounds favorable to me.
You guys currently have access to those audio reports.
Yeah, it's all on.
Okay. The budget approval meeting confirmation. So as we discussed earlier, this is something that we have to do as a board to review the budget. Now, Phil, I think you've said that this would happen at the next meeting.
Correct.
Okay, so we just have to make sure that we have quorum there and that everyone's there for this.
Correct.
Okay, yes.
So I think part of their concern, correct me if I'm wrong, was that it falls on the first day of exams, which is fine unless anyone has an exam. So I don't know if anybody has any conflicts or knows their exam schedule or has a calendar.
Well, if everybody in this room doesn't have any conflicts with that date, then we have quorum for that meeting. Oh, yes.
I am traveling that day, so I'm not sure I will
Okay.
have internet access at that.
Very much.
Okay, so let's book it for,
Scheduled.
let's book it for one of the skip days then. Which
So
date?
the exam days where nobody has classes or exams would be the 11th and 12th, which is the Tuesday and Wednesday before the current schedule. So after Easter.
Why don't we just do a weekend meeting?
So the weekend before it would be Easter, and then after that would be still exams.
That sounds like depression.
So
Wait, don't put that on record.
I think the best way to do it is to do it on 11th or 12th, this way most people would be free. If it's an evening, the talk.
I'm getting my wisdom.
So.
I didn't figure that out.
Okay. It's my recommendation to do it on the 11th, but we'll go to budget first.
Does anybody have any conflicts with the 12th? That way Nisha might even be able to speak at this meeting.
What time?
7.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
7:30.
Wednesday? I have work from 8:30 to 4:30, but I can make a special amendment, just let me know that it's not, so I can kind of schedule my stuff and I can talk to my manager.
Yes.
I have class at 7, but other.
There's no
after
class.
7. Oh, fine.
That's super.
Yeah, no, I did.
Director Burke.
Could we do it in like the morning, afternoon, or does it have to be
No,
evening?
Well, yeah, you have work, right?
I have work from 8:30 to 4:30, but like, if you give me enough lead time, I'm sure I can talk to my manager, if that's the only day that works, but I would prefer the Tuesday, obviously.
I think the Wednesday is when most people are free.
What about the evening?
Yeah. so
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, so I think we're gonna do it in the evening. Does that work for everybody? Like, does it work for you to hypothetically do it in the evening?
Possibly, if not.
Possibly, okay. Okay, so given that, can I have a motion on the table to, oh wait, we don't need a motion for this, because,
we do have to.
so can I have a motion on the table to approve the budget approval meeting confirmation on March the 12th? Oh, sorry, April the 12th at 7:30 PM. Motion by Director Leclerc, seconded by Vice Chair Phillips. Would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter?
Woo!
So I see none, we'll move in the voting. All those in favor? All those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, that's you know, yeah, 12 to 7:30. Okay, so that's you know, the motion passes with unanimous consent.
Yeah, just as a note, so I'll touch base with Chris tomorrow morning, and as soon as the budget package is ready to go, we'll post it in that board resources, so you guys can, we have a ton of time with it.
Sounds great.
Perfect.
Okay, some announcements. Anything exciting happening in your lives? Exams,
Job interview tomorrow.
job review, that's awesome.
Graduating son for us.
I'm graduating tonight. That's sad.
Nice. Well, wait, so we have, is the next meeting that on the 12th, the last meeting of the board?
This
Yes,
board-
current board.
This board.
Wow.
You're not done. You gotta.
I still have another year.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Okay, so just quick, without further ado, can I have a motion on the table that the board adjourn the March 30th, 2023 meeting. Motion by Director Murphy, seconded by Director Corey. Would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? See none, we've been voting, all those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes 6-0 to 1.